So this morning, we will be exploring what elements in prose writing make strong character relationships, and then we'll get to write conflicts that are inspired by those characters' relationships in our stories. To begin, I will explain in every story, we have a beginning, middle, and end that is filled in between by cause and effect relationships between characters. Very briefly, I'm going to go over the story arc. This concept of the beginning of your story being at kind of everyone's happy place. Nothing has happened bad yet. It's kind of like the once upon a time there was a beautiful day and then everything happened. And then when you get into your story, you have what's called your rising action. You get to the tip, which is the highest point of conflict. And then you have your falling action into your resolution where the conflict is solved. So in the middle here, we have our plot complications. We have what I like to call heaps and triggers, which is like if you point a gun at somebody and you pull the trigger and then the body falls on the floor. Something happened to cause that effect. So you pull the trigger, then there's a heap. And then our stories are made up of a series of those heaps and triggers between character relationships throughout. So every character relationship also has a conflict. And types of conflicts you can have are person to person to a group of people, or person versus himself. So it can be something that's just mental. They can be talking to God, something like that. We're going to go over a few different types of relationships that can inspire conflict within our writing. So a series of different types of relationships. We're going to talk a little bit about each one. So you could be best friends, you could be worst enemies. Those I found pretty self-explanatory. It can be a familial relationship. So between siblings, a parent-child, cousins, uncles, nephews, can be your in-laws, can be a romantic relationship, which could be a boyfriend or girlfriend. It could be a husband or wife. It could be a secret love affair. It could be someone you're out on a date with. It could be a spatial relationship, which I said that because it's a relationship you have due to the proximity you have to another person. For instance, a student and teacher, they're in a classroom together, automatic relationship. You have classmates, you can have roommates, coworkers, doctor-patient, something like that. Psychological. So this can include a character that's dealing with mental illness or struggling with a physical disorder or handicap. They can be struggling with addictions. They can be navigating trauma from things like being bullied or suffering domestic violence. You can have a situational relationship. For instance, you're in a competition with another character. The characters are abandoned together on a deserted island and they have to form a relationship in order to get out. You can be strangers on an elevator, but it just broke down. You can have a child lost in a park who asks you to help them find their parents. So any of these situations would immediately instigate a conflict. The psychological and person-to-person relationships of those that you are in relationships may affect you as well. So for instance, if your parent has a relationship with alcohol or suffers domestic violence from a spouse or someone else in the family, you could have a best friend who hangs out with negative influences and you're concerned that they might rub off on you. So some goals for some of the conflicts we've described could be maybe you have that conflict with your mom with the alcohol and your goal is to get her to become sober. You might have a goal to break up with a boyfriend who is cheating. And then there are several other goals you may have within these relationships. So we're going to take a few moments and choose one of the relationship types listed. And we're going to write down a possible relationship and conflict that you would like to write about. You can pick any conflict that you want. So this is what is called an open scene. But what it is a bare bones script that's open to interpretation of what is actually going on conflict-wise between the characters. So we have character A and character B, and they are sharing a brief dialogue between each other. Within that dialogue, you have space to fill in the details of what the relationship and conflict is. So the script reads, "Oh, yes. Why are you doing this? It's the best thing. You can't mean it. No, I'm serious. Go on. I will." So we have a scene between two characters on video that I'm going to share with us. It's a brief 1-minute clip. And they filled in the spaces within this dialogue. So we're going to show you one example of a story that could take place within this scene. And then we're all going to get the opportunity to write our own conflicts and relationships using this as inspiration.
Oh.
Yes.
Why are you doing this?
It's the best thing.
You can't mean it.
No, I'm serious.
Go on.
I will.
We'll go ahead and use this as a base example to discuss. So they left it open to interpretation about what the relationship and conflict were, but it could have been that they were a couple, could have been their relationship. The conflict could have been she was moving out and didn't want to. And the main character's goal could have been that they wanted to make up, but maybe they didn't know how. But there are also other interpretations that you could take for where that scene was headed. But we're going to be taking this moment to write about our own choice of relationship and conflict for that same open scene. I will put it back on the screen. This is going to be a free write where we just take the time to write down the first thing that comes into our heads. Sometimes that can get us a lot of ideas that we may have been afraid to use prior to. So we're just going to be explaining what sort of a relationship and conflict we think are happening within that, well, that we choose are happening within that scene. And then what goal our main character has in order to overcome that conflict. So if you get stuck in choosing your own relationship and conflict, you can use the video as an example and just write down a further narrative of what was going on between those characters, what their relationship was, who was the main character, what was the conflict. So we're just going to make sure that our stories include a conflict, a relationship, and what our goal was to overcome the conflict. So our time will start now. So I'm excited to share our stories.
I can go first. Oh, please, you're really going to let this come between us? Yes, I am. Why are you doing this? We've been friends for 5 years. It's the best thing. I can't be friends with someone who thinks it's okay to sleep with their best friend's boyfriend. You can't mean it. We didn't even sleep together. We just kissed. No, I'm serious. I'm done with you. Both of you. Go on then, leave. See if I care. But just know, I told him no, that I couldn't hurt you. I will. Wait, you told him no? And then that's all that I got. Just kind of focusing on like their friendship and like they had that bond, and then she went and kissed her boyfriend. But it was kind of like if I added more of the narrative, it was like he kissed her, trying to betray the other girl's trust, and so like she's trying to repair their friendship.
I'll share mine. What I did with this was I kind of filled in details before the first word was spoken, and then I closed it out with the last line in the scene. So he kisses her there on the park bench. It was something she'd wanted for years, but he was way out of her league. Oh, she moaned, unsure of what to do next. Yes, he acknowledged. tipped up her chin and leaned in to try again. Why are you doing this? She backs away, doubtful, not wanting to get hurt. It's the best thing, he purrs in pleasure. You can't mean it, she retorts. He leans in closer, puts an arm on her shoulder, looks into her eyes affectionately. There is no fear there, no hiding. If eyes can be trusted to tell the truth, she trusted these baby blues. Finally, letting go of her inhibition, she leans in closer too. Go on, she coos, smiling up at him. He smiles back. I will, and obliges.
Ooh, Pamela.
I like the way you like were able to like with the like skeleton of like, the opening scene, like to kind of provide some insight into like what was happening, so we could like visualize like the different tones of how that script could look depending on who the characters are or what was happening. It's dope.
I'll read mine next. I guess the context was situational conflict. Oh, isn't that one of the older presentations from the last campaign? Yes, I thought we could use it instead. We're on a really tight deadline and we're going absolutely nowhere. Why are you doing this? It's from 2002. No one will know the difference. It's the best thing. Is it though? I mean, we were told to create something original. You can't mean it. I do. Someone's going to find out. No, I'm serious. We were told to create something original, and this is original. Go on. No. I will. We can do better than this. Take a look. It's not a bad idea. So mine was two people on a deadline looking to use someone like old work instead of their own, hoping they can get away with it.
Like really tense, like literally, like I could feel it because it's just like as they go back and forth, it's like the one's like, no, you can't do that. Like you can tell there's like the really honest one, and then there's the one who's like, who cares? Like, oh, yeah, I love that.
And sort of like I wanted to convey it was out of desperation.
Yes.
Like you've got a project due in like 2 days and you've got nothing. So, it's office trauma, basically. Office situational trauma, pretty much.
I liked the tension between the characters. I could definitely feel the relationship there. I was less sure on that actual conflict within the writing until you explained it afterwards. So it would have been interesting to have it actually stated within the narrative. And sometimes we don't want to say like spoon feed it to your readers, but sometimes you just need one sentence or word, and that's really all. And then just go on to continue to explain the character's emotions about it.
Yeah. That's true. You don't, that's a really good way of putting it. You don't want to spoon feed, but you do actually have to give them something.
So that was our exercise for the morning. I hope everyone enjoyed it. I'm going to close out with a question of, was there something that it made you think or feel?
Has anyone ever heard of that phrase, show, don't tell? In like it's in story in creative writing, like showing and telling. It's a really good way to practice the balance between showing and telling and doing one and not the other.
I did like kind of seeing the story arc and kind of adding more to it around like conflict and relationships. And so I'm interested in kind of learning a little bit more about how do you cultivate that. And very similar to what I think Rachel said was like, how do you kind of balance between like, I want to show them and I want the reader to kind of know what's happening and kind of like build with the suspense of what's happening in the scene while also not being so explicit with what's happening, and it kind of gives away the whole like narrative and stuff like that, or like the conversation between the group.
It's good too to like just see like, I know like the tension like in yours, and like I feel like we all had different ways of interpreting it.
That's it, you guys. So thanks for joining us. Next week it will be continuing to build on the same concepts of building conflict in relationships.